In this video we're going to take a look at the new features included in the Power BI Desktop September 2015 update. We have a massive update this month with 44 new features. Yes, I said that correctly. We actually have 44 new features, which if you count the number of working days that we've had since our previous update in August, it comes down to something like almost 2 new features per working day. So we've actually been very busy. In fact, we have so many new features this month that I had to split my usual PowerPoint slide with the feature list into 4 different slides this time around, and I've grouped them by the major feature areas in the product. So you'll see a list for report authoring improvements, another one for data modeling improvements, and 2 more lists for data connectivity and data transformation capabilities. So let's start by looking at the report authoring improvements. The first improvement on the list is the ability to define report level filters. So before this update, users were able to define filters at the visualization and page levels, but it was not possible to define a filter that would apply across all of the visualizations in all of the pages on your report. So let's take a look at report level filters in Power BI Desktop. I've switched to this existing report that I have with sales information, and now you will notice how within the visualizations pane, where there used to be the page level filters, we've also now added the report level filters, so you can drag any field within your field list. So let's say, for instance, we'd like to drag the country, and you can define a filter here that would apply across all of your pages. So in this case I just have one page, but if I were to exclude Brazil from my report, you'll see how it will actually exclude Brazil from all of the different visualizations within all of the pages in my report. Alright, great. So let's go and take a look at the second feature within the report authoring improvements this month. The second feature is drill up and drill down for columns and scatter charts. So it is now possible to define drill up and drill down behaviors for columns and scatter charts within your reports. These behaviors allow users to enable the consumer of a report to see aggregated data and to be able to drill into a detailed breakdown of that data. For instance, let's say that you create a sales by country column chart, like the one that I have here in Power BI Desktop. So let's say that you have total sales by country, and then you would like to actually define a drill down behavior that when you click, it will drill down to the total sales by city. So I have my country field here in the axis area, and I can also drag city and I can put it below country. So now I have double axis here with country and city, 2 different fields in the axis, in the x-axis. And now I can see how at the top of my visualization I got 3 new controls. One is for drill up, which of course right now it's not enabled because I'm in the top level visual, and then the second option is the ability to drill all to the next level. So this will basically take all of the data that I have for sales across all of the different countries, and it will just break it down by cities. So if I do that, it's gonna do total sales by city, and you see how now I get a bunch of cities across all of the countries. So this is basically all of our sales by city. And then I also have the ability, now that I'm down to this level, I could also drill up with the first control that was disabled before. So now that I've drilled up and I'm back to the total sales by country, I'll be able to enable the drill down mode. So when I click here on the top right, I click to enable drill down, and you see how the arrow now is selected. So that means that drill down mode is enabled. And so for instance, now if I click on USA, I'm drilling down to see the total sales by city within the United States. Note that in this mode it's also possible to still do cross filters. So for instance, I could select year 1997 and I would do the cross filter across all of the other charts, including the one in which I'm drilled down, and that would work the same across all levels. So if I go again one level up, it's going to still show me the cross filter state based on the year that I selected in the other column chart. Great. So let's go back to the list of features. The third new feature is actually two different features in one. We've added the different options for page sizes and the page view options for your reports. So let's take a look at that feature in Power BI Desktop. So the first one that we're going to look at is page sizes, which is available from the ribbon and the report, or also if you select the background of your page and you go into the formatting pane, you're going to see section for page size options where you have a few more. So this page size controls the size and the aspect ratio of each page in your report. Keep in mind that you can actually assign a different page size to each of your pages within the report. So if I were to create page 2 now, I could assign a different page size or aspect ratio than the one that I have in page 1. The available page sizes are 16 by 9, 4 by 3, dynamic selection, letter, and custom. So for instance, to switch these to letter page size, and you see how my actual report canvas readjusts to the new page size. And then I can reorganize everything here so that it actually looks nice in this page size. I can switch it then back to 16 by 9, so I'm got back to the default page size that I have for my report. But you get the idea, right? It's fully flexible, because then you could also have different sizes depending on for each of your pages, depending on the content of your page. Now the second group of options is page view. So with page view, you can actually configure how your report pages should be rendered depending on the size of the report viewer. So whether you are in Power BI Desktop or in the Power BI service, you'll be able to control the different behaviors. So for instance, let's go and look at the different page view options, which are also here in the ribbon. I'm able to specify a fit to page behavior, which is the default that I have right now, or I can also say fit to width, and you see how now it's a little bit wider, but it's also a little bit taller, so I get this scroll bar and I can then scroll up and down to see the full contents. Or I can also turn this into the actual size, which is going to make it even much bigger in my view, so I get also horizontal and vertical scroll bars in this case. Of course, if I start doing things like collapsing the ribbon or collapsing some of the panes, I'm going to be able to actually see the full size like now. So just a few more options for you to configure your report and optimize it for the content that you would like to expose to your users, and make it much more efficient for you to create these wonderful reports with Power BI Desktop. Alright, so that's it for the third options, the third new feature, page size and page views. Let's go into the next group. We're adding support for inserting basic shapes in the report canvas. So let's take a look at this. Let's actually make a little bit of room for inserting some shapes. So I'll make this visualization here a little bit smaller. And now we've added in the ribbon the ability to insert shapes. So we have support for 5 different shapes: rectangle, oval, line, triangle, and arrow. So let's go and insert, for instance, an oval. And there it is. And now I can, of course, resize it. And then I get a few additional format shape options here on the side. So for instance, I could control the color of the line that's basically surrounding the shape, or delimiting the shape. I can also control the transparency and the weight, whether I would like to have fill in the image or not. And if I do have a fill, I can also control the fill color as well as the transparency. I can also lock the aspect. Let's say that I want to lock it. Now if I make it bigger, it actually keeps the same aspect ratio, so it doesn't let me make it more wider or taller without making it proportional. So what other options we have? We have the ability to rotate the images, shapes that we've inserted. So you can set either the specific value or just use the slider to actually rotate it to the actual rotation level that you'd like to have. Finally, you can also, just like with any other report element, you could control the title and the color of the title and the position, as well as the actual background for the image, or in this case for the bounding box that contains the shape. Alright, so that gives a few additional options to format your reports, and we're also looking into adding additional support for other types of shapes in the future. So if there's something here that you're missing, please let us know, and we will definitely iterate on that and make incremental improvements. Now let's move on to the next feature on the list. This is actually a couple of improvements to the fields pane. These are based on feedback from many of you that navigation and being able to find items within this pane was a little bit, and I'll make one of my jokes, it was a little bit painful before. So these two improvements are, in first place, a new search box, so you can actually find fields by name. So let's say that I'm here on the fields pane, and I would like to find something about customers, so I can now just start typing something like customer, and it would narrow down and highlight the tables and fields that contain a match for the search term that I'm pasting in. Now the second improvement is the ability to expand and collapse all of the items. So before it was possible to expand and collapse individual tables. Now if you right click in one of the tables, you can also get access to collapse all and expand all. So it really vastly improved the usability of this fields pane, as you will see as you start using it. Now the next item, it's also improving the interactivity between the field well and the fields pane. So you can actually drag multiple items for the buckets within the visualization pane, and for those buckets that actually support a single item, you're actually able to drag a single item to replace it when there's already an item on it. So let's take a look at it. For example, I'm going to select the total sales by category here, and I'm gonna go back into the visualizations pane. So you see how I have my axes are the category name and the legend. It's empty right now, so let's actually drag something to the legend here. Let's drag the category name as well. Okay, so now we got a legend over there with category name, and so now this is a perfect example. The legend, it's a perfect example of a field that actually, or a bucket that actually only supports one field at a time. So if I drag a second field, like for instance country, to the legend, before this was not possible at all, but now it actually replaces the previous field, as you can see, and it populates it with the actual country names as the legend. And it actually updates the color, of course, on my different bar chart elements. So before, you actually had to remove the field in order to be able to drag it over there, which in some cases it would mean that the visual would be automatically deleted for you if the bucket that you are clearing out was the last one that had an element on it. So this greatly improved usability of the interactivity between the visualizations and the fields pane when it comes to configuring the different buckets for each of your visualizations. Great, let's go back to the list. We're on to the second column now. So we've added additional formatting options for data labels. Let's go back to one of my charts. So let's select total sales by country over here, and let's go into the formatting pane. So now if I go into the data labels section, I have additional options like the color of my data labels. So let's set it to something more like red or pink, like that. And you can also adjust the display units. So in this case we're using automatic, but I could also switch this to the thousands. So, and you will see that then it will go from millions to thousands. As you see now, it says K at the end. Or you could also configure this to something else like billions maybe. It's gonna be too small. So the default is auto, because we'll try and pick the best option for you based on the actual values in your data. But keep in mind that you can always configure this. And we also provided an option for adjusting the precision or the number of decimal places in your numbers in your data labels. So let's set it to 3 like that. And you see how it automatically updates the data in your data labels in your visualization. Great. So the next item on the list is some improvements to the Cartesian axis in your charts. So these are improvements to the X and Y axis. The first one, it's about the label directions for the x-axis. So we will automatically adjust them to be horizontal or diagonal so that they fit better in the space that the chart was given. So for instance, in this example, you see how I had lots of countries in this column chart. Let's actually remove the shape because it's getting on the way. So you can see how I got lots of countries, and some of these country names are long enough that they wouldn't fit if they were horizontally positioned, just like the years in this other chart. They fit just nice and great because they're just small numbers and there's very few of them. So in this other one we actually automatically turn them to diagonal so that they'll fit better and be able to display your data in a better optimized layout. The second item is the support for logarithmic and linear scales for values in the y-axis. So you can actually configure this if you go to the formatting pane and you select the chart, of course. You can go to the formatting pane and then go into the y-axis section. So now you have a couple options for linear and logarithmic scale type for your y-axis. Alright. The next option is the ability to set the hyperlinks on text boxes on top of a display text. So basically before this update, users had to always have the hyperlink be basically the link that keeps the hyperlink. It will have to be visible. So if you were to put www.powerbi.com, you would actually see www.powerbi.com in your text box. Now we've improved that so that you can set friendly text and or display text for any hyperlink. So for instance, let's go and say more info would be the friendly text that I would like to have, and now I can select this text and I can use the insert link option within the flying menu and type in the URL that I would like to go. So for instance, let's say powerbi.com, and at the end I'll hit done, and now this has been linked. So it actually, when I mouse over it and I try and click it, it will bring up this flyout menu, and here I can click the actual URL that would take me to that website, or I could remove the hyperlink from here as well. So it makes it more efficient for you to have some text that it's descriptive about what the hyperlink is about, but you don't have to put the actual URL in front of a user at that point. Great, the next group of improvements are improvements to existing visualizations. So now we've made a bunch of improvements here across different visualizations, and we have different categories for them. So let's start by talking about table and matrices. So we actually enable the ability to resize columns within a table or a matrix visualization. On tree maps, we actually support now data labels. On slicers, we support the ability to select all or unselect all with a single click within the slicer control, and we also added additional formatting options for slicers like the outline and background, as well as being able to format the title or the font color and background of the header and the rows, the fonts for them. So for a scatter chart would be another one that we've improved. Now you are able to configure the bubbles color stroke. For cards, single cards, we support a bunch of formatting options that were available before for others but not for single cards. So for instance, the ability to configure data labels, category labels, the title, the background, and the word wrap options. For combo charts, we've actually improved the performance, so they will your combo charts will render faster, and also the interactivity of them. You'll see that they're more responsive. There's smaller or lower latency when you click on them or when you interact with them, so they repaint themselves. And the last visualization that we've improved with this update is the gauge. So you're now able to customize the mean, max, and target values just within the field pane, the visualizations pane. You'll be able to drag any fields from your report to actually become the mean, max, and target values for your gauge. Now the next item on the list is the support for displaying color saturation values in tooltips. So let's take a look at that. So I have this column chart that we've been working with, and I would like to add a field to the color saturation. For instance, I would like to add the total number of units sold, which is quantity from order details, as the color saturation, and you see the color saturation now. But what we've added now in the tooltip is that you will actually see the value of the field that was set as color saturation. So now you see quantity as the additional value within the tooltip over here, the last value. Whereas if I didn't have the color saturation, of course you wouldn't see that value, you only see the other two that were defined in this visualization. So little improvement that would make it easier for you to understand your charts as you look at them and as you mouse over some of the columns and bars on your charts. Now the last improvement within the report authoring area for this month is the ability to resize images and to also apply additional formatting options. So let's go and take a look at this image that I have inserted over here. If I select it, now I get this new format shape pane where I can configure things like locking the aspect. So if I unlock it, I'm going to be able to freely resize this however I want. But if I lock the aspect, again, I'm not going to be able to do that, and I'll always make it proportional between the height and the width. Now the next option that we've added for formatting shapes is the ability to define the scaling, so whether you'd like to have them normal or fit or fill the space that they were given. So let's say fit, for instance. You can also configure whether you'd like to have a title or not, and also you can set background colors and transparencies for your images in your reports. Great, so on to the next big feature area where we've made major improvements this month. We're talking a little bit about data modeling improvements. The first improvement is actually a really significant milestone for us in terms of data modeling, is calculated tables. So what is a calculated table? A calculated table is actually like a calculated column. So it is calculated from other tables and columns that already existed in the model, and it actually takes up space in the model just like the calculated column does. So why are calculated tables useful? They are a general purpose feature, and they actually can hold any valid table DAX expression. So for instance, some of the common functions that you'll be able to apply by means of a calculated table would be things like doing a distinct or a cross join, a union, inner join, left outer join, intersections, and even define calendar tables. So you can actually define those calculated tables with those DAX expressions, and they are going to be recalculated when the model is reprocessed. And then so the columns in the calculated tables, they all have data types, they have formatting, and you can apply categories and default summarization. So they're just like any other table in the model, except that they were calculated based off of DAX expression. You can also, of course, define relationships between calculated tables and any other tables in your models. Well, since calculated tables are part of the model, they can actually be used, among other things, to simplify DAX formulas, where you can use intermediate calculated tables. You can also use them as a way to speed up calculations where the calculations are already in the model. You can use them to create calendar tables, or even to partition a model up with role-playing dimensions. So you can actually use a dimension as a way of partitioning a table into multiple tables by using calculated tables. So in addition to creating permanent model tables, calculated tables can also be used to help you with debugging DAX expressions that return tables. So let's take a look at how to create calculated tables inside Power BI Desktop. I'm gonna go into the data view, and here we have the new table option. So for instance, here, now that I have order details and I have my order ID column, for instance, so we could define, for instance, order IDs could be the name of my table, and we could make it such that this is equals to distinct operation of order details let's actually find the column name. So the order IDs is going to be equals to distinct or order details, order ID. So I'll insert the reference to that. Sorry, hitting some hiccups here. Okay, finally inserted, sorry about that. And then once I hit enter, this is actually going to recalculate the entire table, and it's going to give me, in this case, it's a single column which has the distinct values for all of the order IDs. So you can see how we can start creating more complex DAX calculations on top of this calculated table, and we can really use it to create any new table that we'd like to have based on any calculation that you could perform on top of your data model tables or different columns on different tables. So pretty powerful feature when you think about the power of the DAX expressions that you can create and how you can combine them into many different ways to get into new types of views or partitions for your data. Now the next group of improvements that we've done in the data modeling area of the product this month is within the relationships view. This view is great for understanding the relationships across different tables in your data model, but up until now it was actually mostly a view rather than a way of editing or modifying these relationships, which was possible through ribbon buttons and so on, but it was not actually possible within the diagram view. So now you can do three new things. The first one is create relationships by drag and dropping between two tables in the diagram. So for instance, if I go here into the relationships view and actually let me demo first the second feature, which is the ability to delete the relationship by clicking on it and then hitting the delete key. I'm going to be able to, sorry, not delete a column, but actually select the relationship and either right click to delete or hit the delete key. So now I'm going to delete the relationship. So that was the second feature on the list. Now once we delete the relationship, I'm actually going to show you how you can actually create a new one. So let's say that I want to create a relationship between the products table and the order details table because they both have a product ID. So I know that I can drag the product ID from here and drop it into the products table, and it will automatically find the right columns to relate. In this case, by name, it's an easy one, product ID, but it also finds the right cardinality for me. So you see how it automatically set the relationship to be a one-to-many between products product ID and order details product ID. So that's all great. The last new feature within the relationships view is the ability to rename and delete tables and columns, which is kind of what was getting on the way for me on the previous one that I wanted to demo, because I was selecting a column and I was trying to right click. So now you can actually delete a field from here, or you can rename the field, or you can hide it so that it actually doesn't show up in the report view in the fields list. So if you had internal fields that you wouldn't want to share with the report author and you would like to keep them only on the data model layer, this is a perfect and a great way of doing it within the relationships view. Great, let's go into the next group of features. Within the data view, we've added the ability to copy contents from tables into the clipboard. So let's go back into the data view and let's pick a more interesting table than this. So for instance, let's pick order details. So now I can right click and I can select whether to copy the entire table or to copy a single column. That's what's currently selected. So if I copy the entire table and then go into Excel and paste, this copied the entire table that I had in the view, of course. And so as you can see, it actually contains lots of records or lots of rows. In this case, it will contain up to 2155, which is exactly how many rows I had in the entire table. And you can also do this with a specific column. So for instance, if I copy just unit price column and I paste it somewhere else over here, like for instance in column Y, I'm going to be able to just paste that one column. So full flexibility in terms of what you can copy out of the data view and into Excel or into a text view or even things like Outlook or Word, they will all work great. We try to do the best job we can in pasting these tables into the right format for the destination program which you're pasting in. So we hope that this will be a really valuable feature for you. And the last group of data modeling improvements is around field summarization. The first one is actually something that shows up in the data view, in the report view. So it actually lets you define additional type of aggregations or summarizations within the fields pane. So we added support for median, standard deviation, and variance. So let's go back to Power BI Desktop, and if I go into the report view and I pick something like total sales by year, actually let's do something else. Let's pick a different field here. Instead of total sales by year, I'm gonna do the total number of units sold by year. So for that I can pick the quantity, which the default aggregation is sum. As you can see, that's the default for all of them. But now I can go into this drop down, and in addition to sum, average, min, max, and count that we had before, we've added 3 new ones that for now they are non-default, but you can actually customize that to be the default. So if you go back to the data view, for instance, and you select that same field that I have here on order details, that's the quantity, you can actually see now in the ribbon how there is a new drop down for default summarization. So the default is sum, but I could turn that into the max. And now if I go back to the report view, and I remove the sum of quantity which was defined before, and I drag quantity again, that's going to default to the maximum. So as you can see, these are ways for you to start enriching your data model with additional information so that the right default behaviors happen when you or someone else starts authoring the report on top of that data model. Great. So let's go into the last 2 categories of improvements this month. The first one is data connectivity, where we have 10 different improvements. The first one is support for on-premises Spark distributions. So last month we added support for HC Insight Spark, and this month we are expanding that to other Spark distributions. So this new connector can be found in the Get Data dialog under the other category. So let's go take a look at it. We can go under Get Data, Other, and Spark would be next to last over here. And once you select it, of course, it will ask you for the cluster that you're trying to access, or the URL, and you can also select the protocol that you'd like to use to connect, whether standard or HTTP. So after you click OK, you will get prompt for credentials, and then you'll be able to navigate the list of tables available within that Spark server, and you'll be able to load directly or edit them just as you would do with any other data source. The second new feature this month is actually an improvement on top of the existing SharePoint list connector. It used to be such that the SharePoint list connector would allow users to import data from their SharePoint sites, but there used to be a limitation that only sites where the site language was set to English would work with our connector. This month we've improved the connector so that we've removed these restrictions. So now users can get data from any SharePoint list in any site, as long as it's SharePoint 2013 or newer, regardless of the site language. So for sites that are older, such as SharePoint 2010 sites, they continue to work just like they did before, but they still expose the same language limitation because this improvement has actually been done only on newer versions of the SharePoint API. The next new feature under data connectivity this month is an improvement to the Exchange connector. So now we actually allow connections to multiple mailboxes. Users can provide the email address to connect to as part of the source dialog, and then they'll be able to specify credentials for that source, which you may actually use them to match the same email address that you're connecting to or not. So For those of you who actually have a mailbox that is being accessed from many different email addresses, you could actually configure that as well. So this way you can actually start creating or combining data from multiple Exchange mailboxes into a single report, which was a very frequent request from many of you using the Exchange connector. The next feature or improvement this month under data connectivity is within the Excel workbook connector. As you may already know, we did perform type detection for columns imported from XLSX files before, but we didn't do this detection for XLS files. So that's what we're adding this month. We're adding this automatic column type detection when you import XLS files to the Excel workbook connector. The next feature is the ability to select related tables when you connect to a database source. So very frequently users will import multiple tables when they connect to a database, but before this update these users had to manually select all of the tables that they wanted to import. So it often required understanding what the underlying database schema would be, so they would actually pick all the tables that are related. Now with this update we are adding a new button called Select Related Tables to the Navigator dialog. So let's take a look at it. So I'm gonna go connect to one of my recent database servers. It's a SQL Server database. And now once we get into the Navigator dialog, you will see this new button shows up at the bottom. So it initially is disabled until you select at least one table. So for instance, let's go and find my favorite database, which as many of you know is Northwind. And now we're gonna go down to the tables area. So for instance, if I select something like products and then I click select related tables, it will select all of the tables that have a direct relationship with products. So in this case it picked up categories, order details and suppliers. Now if I click it again, it will actually select all of the tables that have a direct relationship to any of these 4 tables. So that's gonna give me a few more. In this case it actually just gave me one more with orders. But now if I click it again, it's gonna pick up things like customers, for instance, and employees. So ultimately if I were to click this enough times, I would actually select the entire set of tables within my database as long as they have relationships. But it actually helps once you pick 1 or 2 key tables that you know about and then you click select related tables. So once you load this data into the model, you actually have all of the tables that you needed and they all have relationships automatically detected for you, and then it's much easier for you to author your reports. And last thing I wanted to say about select related tables is that we've added support for this capability across many different databases that we support, or database types, so including SQL Server, SQL Azure, Oracle, MySQL. It's actually easier if I show the list. So we added support for select related tables for SQL Server, SQL Azure, Oracle, DB2, MySQL, Postgres, Sybase and Teradata. Great. The next new feature or enhancement to an existing feature in this case is an enhancement to the Active Directory connector. So you can actually use alternate credentials when you connect. So let's take a look at it. If I go into Get Data and I pick Active Directory, let's find it on the list, Active Directory. The first thing that I'm going to be asked for is the domain that I would like to connect to. So in this case let's use something fake like my custom domain and click OK. Now the credentials prompt would actually let me pick whether I would like to use my current Windows credentials or I would like to use alternate credentials with username and password for a domain account. So this would make it much easier for me to impersonate as I write queries on top of Active Directory. The next new feature or improvement is, in this case, an improved experience when you connect to a data source and you actually import one or multiple functions. So as you do that, now you'll start being prompted automatically right after you leave the Navigator dialog where you pick those functions. Either whether you click load or edit, we will actually ask you first for all of the parameters needed to evaluate those functions, and then you will get the output of those functions into either the query editor or the data model and the report view, depending on the option that you picked. So this is much easier than it used to be, where before we actually didn't prompt you and you had to go back into the query editor to pick one of these functions and then invoke it yourself and then load it again. So much more simplified experience for you to load functions and to invoke functions from data sources. The next one is an improvement on top of the import Excel workbook contents feature that we added last month, which we know was really successful and really popular amongst many of you that are converting hundreds and thousands of reports with lots of different types of report artifacts from Excel workbooks into Power BI Desktop. So this month we're actually enhancing that support to also support external connections to analysis services tabular models that were defined in Excel. So now these connections will get converted to AS live connections in Power BI Desktop. So they'll simplify a lot of work for you, so you don't need to recreate those reports manually. The last couple of options that we've added this month to data connectivity improvements are the ability to delete all of the entries in the data source settings dialog. So if you go into the data source settings dialog, so if you go through File, Options and Settings, and go to data source settings, now you're going to find next to the delete button, you're going to find the new drop down with which contains the new delete all options, which will clear up all of the data source settings stored for me. So let's go back to the list. The last option is the option to enable relationship import during refresh operations. So this one actually deserves a little bit more of explanation. Basically, Power BI Desktop automatically creates relationships between tables when you load them if these relationships existed in the data source. For instance, if you were connecting to a database, as we saw before with the Northwind example, you'll be able to pick multiple tables with relationships and they will be automatically recreated for you in the local data model in your Power BI Desktop report. So in addition to creating these relationships during the initial load, Power BI Desktop might also create or delete relationships between these tables when you click refresh, because if the relationship was gone from the database or it was added, we would actually refresh the schema as well as the data when you click refresh. So this used to be the default behavior, and it was actually the only possible behavior before, because there was no way to customize it. With this update, we're adding an option which is available under the options dialog. So let's go take a look at it. It's under current file. It's under current file data load. So we have this new checkbox, update relationships when refreshing queries, which would basically let you configure the default behavior that you would like to have. So the default, we've actually switched it to not create or not delete relationships on refresh. That's based on the feedback from some of you that actually find it better to actually lock down the schema based on the first time load results, and then don't have the relationships come in or go away as you refresh your data. But if you like the old behavior, you can always turn this checkbox back on and it would recreate what you had in previous versions of the product. Great, so let's go into the last set of improvements this month. I know it's quite a long list, but so these are just the last 8 improvements. Those last few improvements all fall within the data transformations and query editor area of the product. So the first one is copy to clipboard. We saw this a bit earlier in this video for the data view. We are also adding copy to clipboard capabilities on the query editor window. So let's take a look at that. We go into edit queries, and within the query editor you're going to be able to copy contents from a cell. So if you right click on a cell, you're going to find copy. From a column, so you can find copy over there too. If you select multiple columns, you're also going to be able to copy, or you could also do this from the table context menu, so you can copy the entire table. So let's do this. For example, let's copy 3 different columns. I'll copy them to the clipboard. So now keep in mind that within the query editor window you only have a preview or a subset of the data. In this case it's giving me 999 rows, 999 plus, because we actually give you 1000, but we never look beyond that 1000, so we don't know if there's more data or not. So now if you remember, I copied this exact same table before when I demoed the data tab, the data view capabilities for the same, for copy to clipboard, and we actually had something like 2155 rows, I believe. 2155 was the number, right? So that's because we were copying the entire set of contents on that table, because that's what we have within the data view. We have the entire set of rows. So now if I paste what I copied from the query editor and I scroll down a little bit, you'll see how we only copy up to the first 1000 in this case, because that's all we had. So as you can see, the data gets clipped at 1000 because we only had those top 1000 rows within the query editor preview. So keep that in mind as you copy data. If you want to have the entire data set, you copy it from the data view, which requires you to load that data first. If you had a smaller subset of data, or you just wanted to copy something that was within the preview area in the query editor, you also have that capability. The second new feature within data transformations this month is the ability to filter date columns by the earliest or latest date, and that's a dynamic filter. So let's go back to our query editor and let's go to the orders table where I have a few date columns. So if I select order date and I go into date time filters, in addition to all of the other filters that we used to have, now we also have is earliest and is latest. So if I actually select is latest, it's going to apply a filter where first it will calculate the latest date within the current set, and then it's going to apply that filter on top of the data. So as I said, this is actually a dynamic filter, so if I refresh it again next year and we got new rows of data with newer order dates, it will actually filter by the latest date that it finds at that point. Alright, so the next feature, similarly to earliest and latest date for filtering, we've also added transformation that would actually extract the earliest or latest value from a date or date time column, which is available from the transform tab also here in the editor. So let me actually remove the filter step and show you again at this stage in the table how you can select that one column and then go into the transform tab. And now if you go within the date menu or the time menu, you're gonna find these new options for earliest and latest. So if I select latest now, this will return a single scalar value that actually is the latest date that was found within this column. Great. The next transformation that we've improved this month is replace values. We've added the ability to specify special characters within the replace values dialog, so you can use them to either find values or replace values. So let's go and find one of the columns like customer ID, that's a text column. So if you go now into the replace values dialog within the ribbon, you're going to get a few advanced options to apply. So there's value to find and value to replace with, that's always been there. And then if you go to advanced options, match entire cell contents used to be there as well, but now we've added replace using a special character. So if you use that option and you'd like to insert a special character, you would actually insert that character in the in one of the two fields above that has the focus at that point. So if I switch to replace with now and I click carriage return and line feed, you see that it actually inserts those two special characters. So this was possible before through custom editing and specifying the actual escape sequence for that special character, but that was not very discoverable and not easy to know for you which one you actually had to use. So this is much simple now, where you can just point and click to insert the right escape sequence for replacing values. Great. On to the last 4 improvements. So the first one is the ability to detect column types at any specific point in time that you'd like to do within your query. So as you know, Power BI Desktop applies automatic column type detection when you import data from certain data sources like text files, web pages, and so on, CSV files and so on. So basically any data source that does not have any schema or data type information, we would actually compensate and try to detect the best column type for you. So that's a one-time detection that we perform right as you import data from that data source for the first time, but there's no way for you, or it didn't used to be a way for you to apply this same column type detection at any given table that you have within the query editor. And so if you actually wanted to set the type for many different columns, you actually had to go and manually select them and specify the type that you wanted. So now we've improved that, and we've given you the ability to detect data types. So for instance, if I select these 3 columns, I have detect data type now under the transform tab, that when I click it, it will actually look at the rows of data that we have, and it would detect automatically the type that it was better suited for these columns. So in this case, it actually detected a couple of int64 type columns, or integer columns, whole number columns, and one of type text. So this will make it much easier for you, because it will save you lots of time. So you can just select a bunch of different columns and then click detect types, rather than having to go one by one and manually set the types for you. Great. The next to last item on the list is the ability to refresh all previews, to refresh all the query editor previews with a single click. So as you may already know, we have refresh preview that would refresh a single preview for one of your queries, the one that's currently in focus. So as you can see now, just refresh. But if I wanted to refresh all of them, I would have had to switch between them and click refresh one by one. Now I can just go into this drop down under refresh preview, and I have this new refresh all option that will go ahead and refresh all of the query previews for me within all the tables that I have in here. So again, one of those things that simplifies and makes it much more efficient for you to work with the query editor environment. If you knew you had to refresh all of them, that's much easier for you to do than going one by one. Great. And the last group of new features were actually, they are performance improvements. Those are always nice to have, and as you know, we continue making performance improvements across many different areas of the product with every new update. This month is the turn for improving the performance in these 2 areas. The first one is the choose columns dialog. So if I go into the choose columns dialog from a very wide table, like for instance my customers table, I believe, actually products table has more columns, so let's go into the products table that has 13 different columns. I can go into choose columns, and the performance on bringing up the list within the choose columns dialog is immediate. As you saw, there was no noticeable lag in bringing up this list, and it's actually much more evident as you go with tables that have up to hundreds of columns, where you can get back into this view and immediately start selecting the columns that you'd like to keep without having to wait for that preview. Similarly to this, we've also improved the performance on the list of values to filter by. So as you saw, there was a little bit of loading time, but it was just a few milliseconds, and now we're able to more efficiently load the items within the filter menu, as well as the expand and aggregate menu. So for instance, if I go to a table like order details that has this column with nested tables and nested records on them, you saw how the load of this menu was immediate. So that's basically the performance improvement we've done this month. It makes it much more fluent for you and much more efficient for you to work with your data as you apply filters and aggregates and expand operations. Great, so that's all for this month. I hope you guys enjoyed these new features. I hope you find them very useful. As I was saying, this is a very massive improvement for us, a very massive update with 44 new features, and we're actually already working very hard on the next round of improvements. So we think that October will be also another great month for Power BI Desktop, so please stay tuned for future updates, and in the meantime, keep using our product, keep sending us feedback, and we really pay lots of attention to your feedback. We are committed to getting back to every one of you with any questions or issues or suggestions that you may have, and we look forward to hearing back from you. Thank you so much for your attention. Have a good one.